participants. On behalf of Alagappa University College of Education, I welcome you all for the international webinar on STEM Education and Knowledge Integration, organized by Alagappa University College of Education, Karaikudi, Tamil Nadu. Once again, I request all the participants to kindly mute your audio and video for the smooth process of the webinar. Hema madam, will you hear me? Hema Paul Panchaman ma'am, could you hear us? Participants, if you find any difficulty, kindly send a message in the chat box. We will take all that. Okay, sir. Just within 2 minutes will start, sir. Principal will. Oh, okay, sir. Okay, sir. Yes, we are seeing that. You- Off பண்ணிட்டேன், ஸ்கிரீன் ஆஃப் பண்ணிட்டேன். அதான் சொன்னேன். நான் இதுல போட்டுக்கிறேன் மேம், மொபைல்ல. Good afternoon, all. Is it audible? Participants, kindly reply. Is it audible?
Okay, madam. It's audible.
Thank you, sir.
Audible.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon, all participants. Once again, I welcome you all for the international webinar on STEM education and knowledge integration organized by Alagappa University College of Education, Karaikudi, Tamil Nadu. Now, it's given me an immense pleasure to welcome you all for this session. Now, I invite Dr.J. Sujata Malini ma'am, Principal in Charge, Alagappa University College of Education, to welcome the gathering.
On behalf of Alagappa University College of Education, we are happy to welcome you all for today's webinar on STEM education and knowledge transmission. On behalf of Alagappa University College of Education, we feel pride to propose this welcome address at this juncture of international webinar on STEM education and knowledge transmission. So, in this regard, it is my pleasure to extend my heartfelt thanks to all my faculty members for organizing this international webinar. At the outset, happy to congratulate Dr. Portia, for organizing this international webinar, which is a need of an hour, where the STEM education and knowledge transmission is very important in this occasion, whereas the interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary approach of research is carrying on. We are kindly taken into account of STEM education and knowledge transmission in the regard of teacher education. And in this regard, I feel so happy that today we are organizing this international webinar. And at the outset, I feel happy to welcome our today's chief guest or speaker from Australia, Dr. Prem Nath Kurup. Sir, it is our immense pleasure on behalf of Alagappa University College of Education. We are happy to welcome you for this international webinar. And as an academician and a well-versed person, educationalist in the field of education as well as in the field of psychology and different aspects related to teacher education, I'm so happy that you have, with all your academic credentials and knowledge, you will be transacting the STEM education knowledge transition webinar in an effective way so that our participants will be benefiting out of this international webinar. So, in this aspect, I feel much privileged to welcome you for our international webinar. And I also welcome the organizing secretary, Dr. Portia, for being with us and organizing this webinar in a successful manner. At the outset, I also welcome all my faculty members of Alagappa University College of Education for being with us in all our endeavors and supporting us and joining with us for this international webinar. I also welcome all the participants from Tamil Nadu and outside Tamil Nadu, from other states of India and from participants from international level. All the three countries have also participated in this international webinar. They have registered for this. So it is our pleasure that we have taking over this session in a grand way, in an international level. So in this regard, I also welcome all the participants who have joined with us, and I also welcome all the participants who have joined with us through YouTube link, and they are also seeing the same session in a live streaming. So, in this regard, it is my privilege to welcome each and one of you for this international webinar on STEM education and knowledge transmission. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Dr. R. Portia, Assistant Professor, Alagappa University College of Education, to introduce our resource person.
With the blessings of the Almighty, a very pleasant afternoon to everyone attending this webinar. I deem it a great pleasure in welcoming you all to this afternoon session. I extend my warm welcome to our eminent resource person, Dr. Premnath Kurup, working in La Trobe University, Melbourne, Australia. He was awarded PhD in Science Education from Edith Cowan University, Australia. His research interest includes STEM and confidence and competence of teaching, climate change education, and so on. Sir has also attended academic of global education program in India and Malaysia. He has been an exchange teacher in Japan. He was also a visiting research fellow in Institute of Education, University of London, which is the #1 university in QS World Ranking in 2014. He is a recipient of many international and national awards. He is also an international reviewer of books in Routledge, Taylor and Francis Publishing Group. He has research collaboration with various institutions in China, England, India, and so on. He is an ardent writer and published several books at Cambridge University Press and Lambeth Academic Publications. He has completed a project on National Colombo Plan in collaboration with RMIT University Melbourne and Christ University India for $270,000. Also completed a project for R&D 1.2 million with Professor Yan Dong in Beijing Normal University, China. In 2017, he was granted $15,000 for STEM project. These are some of the projects completed by our resource person. With this few words of introduction, I extend my warm welcome to our revered Professor Dr. Premnath Kurup to share his views on STEM education. I would also like to add the registration includes the participants from 23 different states, 5 union territories. Apart from this, the participants are also from UAE, Singapore, Australia, and Europe. Thank you, one and all. Enjoy the session.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I hand over the session to our chief guest.
Sir, please, sir, unmute yourself, sir. Sir, unmute yourself. We can't audible.
Yes, sir. So visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. I will then move on because I have some problem in seeing you all. That's all right. I will just move on. What I will do is, because I have an agenda talking about the STEM education, I will start with talking about what the STEM education is. And then at the present day, it's very important that we need to touch a few things about the 21st century skills and also the chaos theory. And then I'll talk about the 5E model and the inquiry approach that is necessary in doing STEM and particularly in science education. And I also touch upon sort of a future possibility, sort of the project that we are engaged at the moment. The STEM education at the moment, people have a lot of confusions about it, and many people talk about it, but exactly people are not very clear about it. The reason is we are all still in areas of disciplines. We like disciplines, and we keep on moving with disciplines, and it's very difficult for us to think about as an integrated knowledge. the reality at the moment, we need to think differently. And we need to approach things differently. What the sort of technology and devices that we are using at the moment is going to be outdated very soon. Outdated in the sense, we are facing that problem at the moment. Even our own ways of teaching and how people learn, all these things are going to be different. So a small virus in this world has made a lot of changes to our, even our existence to that extent, and the way in which we are doing things. So probably it may be a catalyst for making all these sort of changes, and it is necessary, and it is very important at this stage to think about knowledge integration and looking in a different way, looking at of an integrated approach of learning things together. I normally take an example of a torch. If you think about a torch, the torch is actually a technological device of what you call it as an electric circuit. Basically, torch consists of an electric circuit. When it is technologically advanced, it is going to be a torch, and that torch can be a pocket torch, torch can be a search torch, or a variety of things. The basic thing, it's only an electric circuit. So a concept, a science concept, or any other concept, when it is devised with various ways, sometimes things are emerging. A simple example, again, probably I may be a chemist, that's the reason I will be saying, say like a redox reaction. When Daniel Volta thought, oh, redox reaction, electrons are losing and gaining. If I can get these electrons outside this particular system, I would be able to make a cell or a battery. And that's how initially the cell has started, and now you can find button cells and even the cells that we can use in our own what you call telephones and watches, and different ways in which we'll be able to think can happen. But in reality, it's everywhere. I have seen this issue all over the world because people are only talking in namesake about STEM. And always people say it's very important that we need to start from primary schools. But it's not happening. It's not happening anywhere. And it's only, a keyword. Everywhere now you will be saying, oh, it's a STEM class. You go to America, then you will be able to see plenty of schools have been changed from science to STEM or in science and mathematics together as STEM. And there may be some sort of innovations happening, but exactly people are not very clear what to do, or there is no specific curriculum talking about what STEM education is at the moment. That is the real issue facing everywhere in the world. But at the same time, everyone is interested and everyone wanted to make this happen, because we cannot move on teaching concepts and writing exams. This is not going to make anything. It's not going to make innovative and creative people around the world. That is very, very clear. And the key people like Fensham. Fensham is one of the world leaders in talking about the need of things to change. And there should be some sort of informed decision making. People should be in a position to make informed decisions. And informed decisions are not happening all on a sudden. And people should have the knowledge base. And whether they would be able to use the knowledge base in situations is a very important approach. Whether the STEM or the science classes are equipping properly our students into that particular situation is a questionable thing. Roger Bybee is another he's basically a scientist, and he was teaching in biological science. And undergraduate biology teaching, he found it difficult. That is the reason why he created the 5E model, which I'll be talking later about that. And he's advocating STEM these days, and he's strongly recommending a sort of a 4P approach. There should be a purpose, there should be policy, there should be program and practices, and that should happen. And it's a business of everyone. It's not just the teacher's business. It should happen right from the curriculum. And of course, I know the curriculum is dictated nowadays with more of content, and teachers may not get enough time to even finish the content, and we are just producing knowledge-based society, and that is not doing anything at the moment. Whereas some changes are happening in countries like Australia, to some extent in the UK, as well as in America. And China is actually entering very heavily into the STEM because there are a few schools completely covering the aspect of STEM, because they try to integrate, and then they try to produce people of that particular caliber. Because I have seen in one of the schools in Beijing, because a 13-year-old student is actually trying to become an astrophysicist, and his intention is to go to the space. And he's actually learning things just suited to that particular thing. At the same time, he's integrating things, including economics, what is necessary to deal with that sort of projects and sort of things. So it's an isolated thing. It's not happening everywhere. So that's how things are happening in different parts of the world. And the purpose of the STEM education, it should be based on the knowledge, attitude, and the skill. And we need to think about innovations. The innovations in the sense, we should be a creative way of integrating different disciplines, and so that to build the knowledge, and that knowledge should be in a position to use, and that knowledge, people should feel that it is necessary for the changes happening within a useful purpose and sort of things. And incorporating disciplines, and there is a saying, what is science? Science is basically developed because of the inquiry the human beings started, the questions human beings started. And the science has not gone beyond these sort of inquiry or questions. But probably that is a limitation of science, because science probably may not give answers to everything. And we are still finding answers to a virus at the moment. We are not still clear about what exactly is that virus, whether that virus is only producing a pneumonia, or whether it is producing a stroke, or it's producing everything, because it's just behaving differently in different people, and it has got multiple ways of multiplication and sort of things. So that's how we are confused at the moment. And our science is not in a position to give a proper answer immediately, because we're still on the process of inquiry. And no science has gone beyond this human questions and human inquiry. And we need to encourage that, and we need to provoke our students to question and to go for inquiry approach. And it's a sort of a willing, and like it should be connected to the daily life. It's connected to the societal issues, and within that particular cultural, intellectual environment, we should be able to deal this. Only then we will be able to make it creative and make it useful for the society to come forward and sort of things. Then, of course, we all believe that education is a lifelong process. It's not only lifelong, life-wide, life-deep, and we need to think that way. It's not lifelong, it's life-wide, life-deep, and we should be in a position to connect that to what is necessary in context, which are connected to people, so that people will be generating something new and which is going to be very creative. And some researchers think like we need to step back and look more holistically. That's right. Because most of the time we are confined to disciplines and we are confined to certain orientations and we move on doing things on that. It's not going to be creative. It's not going to be producing anything which is very valuable in this particular context. I'm stopping to check whether people are hearing me or just I'm talking. Hello?
Sir? Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Is it all audible?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. Audible.
Okay. All right. Because I'm not sure. Audible. All right. Because I'm not sure because I'm just talking whether that's all going right. I don't know. If that is not the case, please let me know. And one of the things that you can do is all these sort of questions, if you have questions, somebody can compile it and let me know at the end. I'll be able to answer some of them. Is that making sense?
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Because if somebody said compile some of the questions, because people may be chatting with the questions, and that questions, if somebody can tell me later, then I would be in a position to answer them at the end. Is that okay?
Okay, sir. Fine, sir. We will inform the audience, sir.
Yeah, okay. And I'm happy at the end would be in a position to answer some of these questions. Okay. People talk about, can I move on?
Yes, sir. Fine, sir.
Sure. You can move on,
Sir.
Yeah, okay. People talk about 21st century skills. What are all these 21st century skills? It's a sort of, it's very difficult to talk in terms of what are these specific skills. But generally, it is adaptability. It needs a complex communication skills, non-routine problem solving, self-management and self-development and system thinking. Of course, going backward, I think I need to go forward. Yeah. We are now in a position of adaptability at the moment because we are adapting at the moment. In Australia, we had the lockdown. And because this is an isolated continent, we stopped people coming inside to this continent, and then we have isolated, and that probably has worked here to some extent. Of course, new cases are coming because we had some, all over the world, things are changing with various issues. Because of the lockdown, because of this, people also got frustrated with what has happened to them. And so what is happening in America, and some reflections of that has happened here in Melbourne also. There was a meeting, and we don't know what's going to be the result. In another week, we know whether new cases are coming and sort of thing. So it's adaptability at the moment is an apt word. We have to be adaptable, and we are understanding the word adaptability better because uncertain, new and changing conditions. And we also should know learning new tasks, technologies and procedures. Yes, we are doing that because even in our own case, we have to, teach differently, and we have to approach differently, because we are finding it extremely difficult to be in direct contact with people. So adaptability is going to be the key word, and it is going to be an essential part of our life in coming 2-3 years, because in different ways we have to have this adaptability. Otherwise, it will not, because whatever we have done at the moment, we may not work, and we need to find new things, and we need to engage with the new things, and you need to find new things and new ways and sort of things. So adaptability, of course, is one of the very important. Then the complex communication skills, because the communication people say nowadays, what really? Because there are different ways of communicating things. There are just not the verbal communication, You cannot nowadays go for a lecture and ask people to listen to the whole thing for an hour or something like that. It's not going to work. Nobody is going to listen to you. And that has to change, and it is changing. And, we don't have any more lectures at the moment. And it is going to, because in the last semester, I had to change all my lectures, and it's a sort of mostly on Zoom meetings, and it was more of a discussion, and it was working better than what it was actually happening in the lecture. And it's a sort of presentations of multi-model representations, and it's a shared understanding. And nowadays, people also talk about de-technicalizing things, because the technical jargons may not sometimes convey all the meanings. So communication to all aspects is very, 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 very important. And there should be reasoning and argumentation. That is not exactly happening most of the time. People are not reasoning things. People are not making an argumentation with a democratic process of argumentation, because we all have some sort of bias. And this bias, then we try to, if you ask me how many biases I have, probably my wife will say about 250. I may have more than that. I don't know. So we all have bias. We cannot count it. It's very difficult to count. And these biases influence, ways of reasoning, because we have some judgment already. And it is better the reasoning should take place based on evidences, and the argumentation should take place in a very democratic way, because we need to accept others' point of view and look at and weigh it down, and to make an informed decision is very essential, which is a difficult process, very difficult process. Informed decision making is always a difficult process. All right, I'll move on. And again, in this particular context of COVID, the non-routine problem solving is very important, because we are not facing normal situations. We are facing totally different situations, and we need to identify issues, solve the problems, particularly the decision makers at the moment, because they have to have all the time non-routine ways of solving the problem, because there is no correct answer at the moment. You may do a mistake, identify the mistake, then go on, change it, and it should be more creative and innovative in this particular process. So non-routine problem-solving skills are very, very important. It is increasingly important after this particular situation. And if you talk about the self-management and self-development, to work alone, new information, and interest and motivation, positive attitudes to determine, because you're all, most of the people might have been worked alone for quite some time, and I'm really working alone at the moment because very rarely I get a chance to see a colleague or have a coffee or any of those things. So that's sort of a social settings and the social ways of dialogues that's actually missing at the moment. We develop things alone and then propagate that, and then probably using this sort of an interface in which we are communicating. And of course, the technology has reached to a level where it's possibly able to communicate each other and sort of things. And then the most important aspect is the system thinking. Most of the time, we are all highly individualistic because even in a department, we will be thinking about what's happening within the department. We may not even think the whole university. The whole university is a complex system. We may be selfish and talking only based on our own departments, what is it happening and sort of things. And how the entire system is working, because we are one of the affected system at the moment, because we depend a little bit on the international students, and the international students may not come for a couple of years because of the travel restrictions and because of the ways we are doing totally different approach and sort of things. We had a good cohort of international students because we had around the ranking around within the 200. So we were attracting plenty of students from China and India, and also some parts of Africa and Middle East, and they're not going to come for a couple of years. It's going to be the reality. We are facing that. And then and how we are going to work differently, and how many of us will have the job is a serious question, and we need to think the system, and we need to think differently. We need to find a way of understanding the whole system and what the system is working and sort of things is very important at the moment. So the 21st, that's the reason why I thought of bringing the issue of 21st century skills, because we as educators need to develop this particular skill. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for future generation to adapt to situations and sort of things. It's very important, to know about the complexity theory. And the complexity theory, I'm talking based on some examples of medical terms or medical examples. The simple cases, the risk is very low. One of the things is broken arms. There is a simple solution. You put on a fracture for a few days, things will be fine. And the solution is simple, and it's obvious. And then you go to the second level, a complicated case. In a complicated case, as technology improves, the risk will be lower and sort of things. It's a heart bypass is an example. Because most of the surgeons these days say that it's a plumbing job. Whereas some 30, 35 years back, when the first heart surgery was done, it was a breaking news everywhere in the world. The first heart bypass. And over the years, the heart bypass is a common thing. An average surgeon would be able to do that, provided he is technologically supported. And he is actually following the protocols. Because a very highly complicated situation has been made into a complicated case. Of course, there are risks associated with that, but nowadays, plenty of cases are happening. The risk is getting lower and lower. Then if you go to the next level, we'll be able to say that it's a high risk because needs complicated procedures to manage. Still, AIDS is a sort of a situation where there is no fixed solution. The trials are undergoing, research is undergoing, and we have not reached to the previous complicated cases and sort of cases. This is actually a complex case because there is no protocol in which we will be able to make it and manage it and sort of things at the moment, because we don't have a full solution to this particular case. And then the last one is chaos, extremely high risk, and multiple ways of coordination and effort is required. And it's why I'm talking about the complexity theory. If you look the other way around, a chaos can be made to a complex case. So, for example, COVID can be made to a complex case provided we find a vaccine or a medication which would be in a position to manage. Still, we will be able to do further research and sort of things. And then a complex case can be made to a complicated case because of the practices and awareness and sort of things. And a complicated case can be narrowed down to a natural law, which is a normal thing, which we would be able to do it easily, and we will be able to give an answer immediately. So the complexity theory has implications in our own practices, in our own educational practices. If there is something a particular student is finding it so very difficult to understand or something like that, it's our duty to make it into levels, to make it into a sort of a natural law so that it's easily flowing and sort of things. The experiences and the ways in which we approach, it can be made to think to a very simple issue. A complicated issue can be made into a simple problem, or it can be easily solved and sort of things. So it's always what is actually happening is based on practices, protocols, and that's how the complexity theory is narrowing down situations and making natural laws. We have a lot of things to take from the complexity theory into our own practices of education. Particularly in this context, we need to think how this could be delivered and how these exam system should be changed into certain different ways of creative, and how the assessment practices that you do in India at the moment is basically a single examination. And is that enough? Or do we have to change multiple ways of assessing things, and how to make it a continuous, ongoing ways, and also to get assessed with their own approach of their own innovations and their own creativity and their own presentation skills. One of the things that what I'm finding is that the students in India, or coming from India, because I have 2-3 students at the moment doing in my master's program, and what they are really lacking is their communication. They know things, they are finding it very difficult to communicate, and they're finding it also difficult to present things. And they have a wide range of knowledge, coordinate all these knowledge into an effective way, or synthesize it and to make it for 10 minutes presentation and sort of things. They're actually finding it really difficult. How we will be able to incorporate all these elements also into the practice of assessments, and that's how we will be able to think in this particular context. All right. And to that extent, I'm linking a little bit on scientific literacy. The key aspects associated to the scientific literacy, one of the things people should be interested in the world around them, and then be able to engage in the discussions of science then identify and investigate questions and draw evidence-based conclusions. And then there should be skeptical and questioning of claims made by others and make informed decision makings. So, for example, most of the, I was born and brought up in Kerala. And that is a time when I was a student. What I was actually hearing, because I was a chemistry graduate, and even my own professors tried to bring in coconut oil and show us the amount of how much saturated fat this coconut oil is. And people, then the doctors talked about, yes, coconut oil is making cholesterol and heart attack. Most of the problem with the health of the people of Kerala is because of coconut oil. But now I'm hearing a totally different version about coconut oil. Coconut oil is everything. Coconut oil is the most healthiest oil, and coconut oil is a wonderful oil. And people are actually, like even in Australia, it's virgin coconut oil is a very expensive oil. So it's a totally different shift. I'm actually finding it. And what sort of evidence-based were used, and people never been skeptical and questioned the claims given by some of the cardiologists saying that the whole heart attack happening in Kerala is due to the use of coconut oil. Whether the soap lobby was behind in purchasing cheaper coconut oil, and probably that is the reason why, and then palm oil is being used widely. And so there are several cases of these claims made by medical experts, and we have complete faith in doctors, and they say, oh, this is due to that. And we never made any skeptical claims, and we never point out any of these things. Probably that is a reason why the informed decision-making ability was going behind, and a lot of wrong practices might have happened and sort of things. Most of the exploitations are because of this lack of informed decision-making. And these decisions should be creative to the well-being and their own health and the environment and sort of things. Okay. Then, of course, there are plenty of ways we need to think about the literacies, scientific literacy, reading a weather report, and we need to have different skills on that, and and different ways in which we need to do that. But why I'm talking about this, because integrating different learning areas is very important in terms of literacy. Because the words that we use may not be the words sometimes in some other discipline is making, but we need to find the activity and process and findings in a friendly way. We need to make the literacy practices to be very clear and dominant in our teaching learning processes. Okay, I'm skipping a little bit. This is one slide I normally talk about, because you wanted to make a confident science teacher to start with the pedagogical content knowledge. The pedagogical content knowledge is really originated with the content knowledge, and then you should combine that with the pedagogical aspects, and you need to have a strong philosophy of teaching science or teaching any discipline for that particular matter, because we nowadays embrace the constructivist aspect and sort of things. Then we move to the confidence and skill, and only then you'll be able to deliver things in the classroom and sort of things. Okay, I'm just skipping some of these things. Probably what I will do before I start with the 5E model, is there any relevant questions so that I can get some questions and then move forward rather than I move on like that? We'll have some discussions. Is there any good question that I can answer? And then is there any discussion that we can draw at the moment?
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Pardon?
Yes, sir. Is it audible?
Yeah. I would like to get some questions and we'll have some discussions and then I'll go for the next part of that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to ask you that you told us that in this pandemic situation, we have to change the traditional way of assessment. So, sir, I just want to know, what do you think about an alternative way? I mean, what is the best alternative way of assessing our students? So,
one of the practices that we do here is that we will not give the knowledge base more than 50%. That is the exams. The exam content should not have more than 50%. The other 50% should come from variety of things, say like their ability to do some teamwork, working in a team, because it's very important you should get a teamwork and also their communication aspects. And also we need to look some creative ways of doing things. So some sort of an independent project or some independent views about things. These are the ways we assess things.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Yes, sir. What are the complexity theory? Its implication for educational changes?
In complexity theory, I was talking about there are different types of issues. There may be simple issues, and there may be highly complicated issues. How you deal with a complicated issue? The first time it may be complicated. Over a period of time, when it is on practice, when you have clear-cut protocols and you have a technological backing, it can be a simple issue. The simple example is a heart bypass. The first time the heart bypass is done, it is a very complicated situation and people were scared of it, what's going to be the outcome, and it is a big news. Nowadays, it's a minor thing. It's almost a sort of a minor surgery people categorize at the moment. How is it happening? Because it's been practiced with protocols and made it simple. The same way, the complicated issues, you should show that it can be made into simple issues because of the practices, protocols, the knowledge base, technological advancements, and sort of things. Same way, you are dealing with a complicated concept, and how you will be able to deal that complicated concept into a simple form, that also is possible in this way. Am I making some sense? Or?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other questions at the moment?
Participants, kindly unmute and ask your questions. Sir, there are some questions from participants in the chat box.
Yeah, you can.
The first question is whether they can get the STEM skill curriculum followed in Australian schools. STEM skill curriculum in Australian schools.
at the moment, the Australian curriculum is providing a scope for integration and providing scope for innovative approaches. And one of the things they do is science inquiry approach and science as a human endeavor. There are some activities the students have to do with these sort of things in schools. And they won't do any traditional experiments. Rather, they do investigations. It's like a research. They will be given an open-ended question, and the students has to develop an open-ended investigation, and they conduct based on their own ways of formulating a hypothesis and sort of things. And then they will test and then make some evidence-based conclusions based on that. That's the approach at the moment is being taken by the Australian curriculum, the general curriculum in Australia. And the Australian Academy of Science is also providing some professional development for teachers to change it into this approach. That's what is happening at the moment in Australia. If you look at...
At what age is it?
Pardon? Yeah.
Sir, at what age is STEM education?
It's starting from primary schools. It's starting from primary schools. And the Chief Scientist of Australia is very particular, and he has given a report to the government, and it should start from primary schools. And there are STEM teachers, specialist STEM teachers in the majority of primary schools in Australia.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, sir. This is Dr. Jawahar.
Yep.
How will you address the usefulness of STEM education in rural India?
Whether it is rural or urban, we're connecting to real-world problems. So, for example, you can start with the local issue. You can start a simple local issue and innovate, and the students should participate and find some solution to the local issues. And for that, whether it is local or urban, there is no difference, I'm finding it. Even Australia has plenty of rural places, very remote places also. Even in remote places, because one of the greatness of this particular country is that it is an innovative country. The reason is because it's a sort of the most of the wealth in Australia is minerals, and all the techniques that were used in Europe were not being practical in Australian conditions. So that's the reason why they innovate and made so many methods, say like a froth flotation method and the iron smelting and all these things have been done. And even for gold, the gold cyanide approach is actually originated from Australia because they had to innovate. And probably that is the reason why the one-day matches also started in cricket. The colour cricket is started in cricket, from Australia. So it's a sort of an innovative country. They are very innovative and they are team players also. That's a basic difference. And we...
Actually...
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, recent research was done at the age of 74 by me. The effect of instructional video games on fostering creativity among school children, as well as the academic achievement, based on the STEM education policy and principles. But still, I think it is not recognized at all. That's the reason why we find it difficult to take it to rural and other areas. I do not know how will you view this point of view.
Because there may be some limitations in providing necessary technological support in the rural area, maybe true. But that should not be the restriction in the way in which you set the approach. The approach that you set on to you tried is very innovative, very creative, and
excuse me for interruption. This is the first of kind in all over the world, because I have taken the curriculum point of, the lesson unit. From one lesson unit, it was taken. Everything was made game basis and strictly followed the STEM, principles. Yeah, but still, it was very expensive. But I do not know. That's why I asked, will it be able to apply in rural areas?
Because, some of the things, the low-cost ways in which we will be able to adapt. There is no need of very sophisticated equipments in many things. You may be able to adapt in a different way into places where there is no facility available and sort of things. So, and also you would be able to use some local.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Pardon?
Thank you very much, sir. I agree with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions at the moment?
Sir?
Any other question?
Sir?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing.
So which base you are prepared for the syllabus for the students?
I'm not hearing properly.
So which base you are prepared for the syllabus for the students?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
So which base prepare for the syllabus?
The syllabus. Okay, so, yeah. Because the integration should take place, because there are different approaches to that. Because some people take it as a theme. In one theme, they will integrate into different disciplines. So, for example, they may be talking about climate. There may be so many things associated. There may be what we call the climate will be having some sort of the rainy season and so many other aspects, and then how people adapt to the rainy seasons and how that is going to influence on the economy, and several ways in which people actually think about a particular theme and then integrate disciplines based on that. Because only if there is a freedom to the school and to the teacher, this is possible. The syllabus is a restrictive framework, because when you are talking syllabus, you will be saying, oh, it's Newton's law and all sort of things will be there, and that is restricted. It's not allowing any sort of creativity to happen and integration to happen. It should change. There should be some changes in the I would say in curriculum, rather than give some sort of freedom to the teachers to adapt to that, at least up to the 10th standard. That should be the way, that should be the practice. And only if after that, we focus on the disciplines and sort of things.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, because at the moment in India, it's all driven by the...
Hello.
Yep.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I am Sriyachan Research calling from West Bengal. My question is the assessment or evaluation process in the school, the summative or formative. The CC is the CC is one kind of assessment tools. These tools are different criteria. Is one of the criteria is empathy or sympathy. How it possible for assessment, empathy and sympathy in the curriculum, school curriculum?
I'm not clear about what you are talking at the moment. It's about empathy and sympathy. Is it empathy and sympathy? Is that right? You're talking about
empathy and sympathy, measurable, how it possible in teaching learning process.
Yep. Because these are all social skills, isn't it? These are all some of the personal and social capability. Because we, in Australia, we call it as personal and social capability. In personal and social capability, students were given opportunities within the class to use their ability to work in a team, ability to work independently, and ability to communicate. And one of the way they use is they change the roles because they have a system called manager, speaker. So that's what I have seen in some of the primary schools. Manager, speaker, and contributor, and sort of things. So they work together, and then the roles will be switched, and the teacher will be noting their ability to do, how they are interacting, how they are discharging these sort of responsibilities, so that these personal and social capabilities could be assessed.
Okay, sir. I appreciate for your vision. My next question.
I don't know whether that is what you are asking. Yeah.
My question is how it possible for assessment in the school curriculum regarding empathy or sympathy?
Mainly, I'm more of a STEM science person, and my knowledge on these areas are limited. I only know what is happening in some of the schools with the personal and social capabilities here. Other than that, I may not be the right person to answer that question.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir, one more question from the chat box.
Yeah.
What are the roles of languages in STEM?
Yeah, of course. It's a very important question because the language is the medium. No doubt about that. In the teaching learning process, language plays a vital role. And ability of multilingual skills nowadays is highly recognized. So, for example, why Indians are doing better in computer programming? Probably we are multilinguals because we speak different languages. And most of the languages in India are derived languages, so that we have to look for meanings and sort of things. So this is giving us a sort of a capacity in the brain, so that we would be more schematic and systematic in producing things, and also in logically making sequences. That is very important in making a software and sort of things. So language plays a very important role, and the STEM education can, of course, nowadays most of the things are happening internationally in English, and English is recognized as one of the international language. And I have seen even in China, they are more keen on learning English, and that's the reason why majority of the Chinese students are going into English-speaking universities. So they go to America, they go to UK, Canada, Australia, and so on, because they wanted to get the English skills. And because it's widely recognized, and even in air communication, that's in aeroplanes, and most of the communication, I think it is in English. So English plays a very important aspect in technological development and in technological skills. That is not restrictive. Any language, say for example, the highest innovation has taken place in Japan. The Japanese have invented and technologically changed the whole world. Because when Americans were making very big cars, and the whole car industry has been changed because of Toyota. They made smaller cars, and people were happy, and it has changed. And their technological advancements, because the way in which they reacted to what the drawback they had after the Second World War and the defeat, they actually been innovative, and their innovations changed the practices in electronics. So they never learned any English. English was not important to them. They made everything through Japanese. And this is one of the most successful story in terms of original contributions. And, you know, in 1964, I think, the Olympics was in Tokyo, and it was a sort of what you call a technological change to the whole sporting arena in you know, like using devices to find the speed and sort of things in a very precise way. And before that, people were you know, like clicking and finding the times and sort of things. So it has changed a lot with that. And why they were asking for an Olympics in Tokyo? To showcase their innovations. The whole world stunned seeing that. So nothing based on, you know, it's all happened in Japanese. Not so language, of course, is more than the language. The innovation, the spirit is more important. But at the same time, a language also plays a vital role. But in Indian context, if you ask, probably I would say it's better because it's, you know, like we have plenty of linguistic problems. So it is better to take English as a sort of an academic language would be a better way to go, rather than we spend too much of time in translating things into other languages and sort of things. There may be disagreement. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other questions, dear participants? Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your... Yeah, one more question, sir. One more question.
Yeah.
So I want to get your opinion, sir. Whether the STEM education, the knowledge integration, is it useful in the field of special education?
With the special education, you mean what?
Education for children with special needs.
Yeah, definitely, yes. Definitely, yes. Definitely, yes. Because in special education, what I understand is providing life skills is the essential part of that. To integrate them into the main society, and they should be able to deal at least their own things. And most of the time, they may be using technological devices, and they are seeking the help of technological devices to make their life possible. So in that particular place, this is very important. Very important.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. It's happening here. A lot of things are happening here in that area.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your thought-provoking session. Now, I would like to invite Dr. R. Portia, Assistant Professor, Alagappa University College of Education, to propose vote of thanks.
Gratitude is the smallest blossom that springs from the soul. First and foremost, I thank the Almighty for the showers of His blessings throughout. An eclectic evening to all attending this webinar. I express my sense of gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor N. Rajendran, and our Registrar, Professor H. Gurumalesh Prabhu, for guiding us and granting permission to execute this webinar. My sincere thanks goes to Dr. Sujata Malini, Principal, Alagappa University College of Education, for her tireless work and the motherly care shown on us. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to express my deepest sense of gratitude to our erudite scholar and our beloved resource person, Dr. Premnath Karup, for providing insight about STEM education and knowledge integration. He is very magnanimous in his character. Only I chatted with him through WhatsApp asking whether he is able to join with us in a webinar. Within a minute, I got the positive reply from him. Really, I should be very thankful to you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of Alagappa University College of Education and on my own behalf, I express my gratefulness to you for your acceptance, cooperation, and presentation. Thank you very much, sir.
I need to say sorry because the platform was not properly working for me. I'm sorry for that. That is a big limitation because I thought of talking a few other things as well. Anyhow, I've shared the whole presentation to Portia, and she should be able to share it to all participants or whoever is interested in it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Because there are a lot of hiccups at the beginning, and somehow the platform was because it's totally different. Because I should be more adaptable, it seems, and that probably may be the reason why things have not worked properly at the beginning. And hopefully, something might have worked, and some people might have got something to think about. Then I would be very happy. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you all, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's almost 8 o'clock now here, and it's a very cold day also. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. If you have any further questions, and you want to be in touch with, because Portia has got my details, and she will be able to give me further questions. I'm happy to share at any other time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Also, I thank my faculty friends for being with us through this program. Lastly, I like to express my thanks to our participant friends, both in Google Meet and in YouTube Live, for your kind cooperation and participation for the success of this webinar. Finally, my thanks goes to Dr. Mahalakshmi and Mr. Prabhu for being with us throughout this session and helping us in all hurdles. Once again, I thank one and all. Thank you very much.
Dear participants, kindly fill out the feedback form that was put almost in both the YouTube as well as in the chat box. If you found any difficulty, kindly mail us. Thank you so much for your kind cooperation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Okay, bye. Bye.
Participants, once we receive your feedback form, surely we will send your certificate as soon as possible. If you fill out the feedback form, kindly pull off your Google Meet.
Ma'am, you'll be sent by our mail.
Yes, sir. We will send through the mail your certificate, sir. Once you fill out did you fill your feedback form, sir?
Yeah, no. Yes.
It's in the chat box.
Okay.
Once you filled out, you can pull up the Google Meet. We will send the certificate, sir, through the mail.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello. The feedback form is given by mail.
In chat box, you have the link.
Chat box.
I have filled